Welcome to LifeSpring Church's YouTube channel. We hope you enjoy Sunday's message. To find out more about us, please head to www.lifespringchurch.org.uk.
Hello, LifeSpring Church. My name is Maggie Banjo, and today I'm bringing you the message. Firstly, I'm going to be reading from the book of Luke, verses 46 to 47, and the message reads, Ndipo Maria anati, moyo wanga ulemekeza Ambuye. Ndipo mzimu wanga wakondwera mwa Mulungu mpulumutsi wanga. So in this message, I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And these stories are stories of people that chose to magnify the Lord and rejoice in knowing that He is their Savior. And this was regardless of the noise that was happening at the time and the distractions that may be, in their own personal lives or any personal doubt or feelings that they had. It was an intentional choice and decision that they made. The first story is that of Zechariah and Elizabeth, and these are the parents of John the Baptist. One thing to understand at this point is that God had not spoken to His people for 400 years up until this point. So in and itself, it was a big deal that God was speaking to His people. So the angel tells Zechariah, you're going to be a father, and you need to name your child John. Zechariah had a lot of questions, and his mouth was sealed. But after he honored that request from the angel to say he is going to name his child John. Of course, people talked. They asked, why are you naming him John? There's nobody in our family named John. But Zechariah made that choice. What's also important here to understand is that they were past their childbearing age. And so there's a parallel that is drawing between the New Testament and the Old Testament of the last time God had done something this big. It was Abraham and Sarah. Almost as though He was grabbing their attention, right? And then the second story we hear here is that of Mary and Joseph. Now their story is that Mary is a young mother. She's also a virgin. And at this point, she is engaged to Joseph. So when she falls pregnant, Joseph, of course, is, as he would be, it wasn't his child. And in that culture, that was the main thing, the fact that he was not the father of Jesus. And we see in the story that Joseph tries to politely put Mary aside. But Joseph makes the decision and says, you know what, actually, he doesn't, basically. He stays with Mary. Now, for me, Mary is really the linchpin, the vantage point of this whole sermon is through Mary just going through what she was going through, So at this point, at the point that she says this message of Luke 1, verse 46 to 47, she's gone to see Elizabeth, and both their bellies flutter as the children recognize each other. Understandably, she knows that this is a tense moment and something big is upon her, right? And then she utters these words of rejoicing and knowing that God is her Savior. What's also important to understand, and I just wanted to understand, what noise and what distractions were happening to Mary at the time. So we also know that in this time they had to travel from Galilee to Bethlehem. And this was for the registration that was required of them. And soon after she arrives there, she gives birth. So if we think that she went to full term, she must have been around 9 months or 10 months pregnant, right? Now the distance between Galilee and Bethlehem is 90 miles. And she traveled 90 miles on a donkey while being 9 months pregnant. And this is the distance between Reading and Newport, Wales. Yes, I did the research because I really wanted to understand. I was like, oh my goodness, the donkey is hard enough, and understanding the distance, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And still, she's still in the space of, magnifying the Lord and rejoicing. And that's really important. Both these couples were already going through so much, hey? There was still so much happening. And how many of us right now would, if someone came to us with that story, we would understand if maybe they didn't go for the registration, or maybe they didn't name their child John after all, because they're like, no, actually, if I'm going to do this, I'll do it on my terms, But they chose to trust God, and they chose to magnify a God and know that He is their Savior. The third story I'm going to tell you is not from the Bible, but really based in history books. And I implore you, I encourage you to go and look into this. There's different versions of the story with slight tweaks. So please do go ahead and look into it. So you're at this point, we're around 350 AD. You have the empire of Rome, and he is called Constantine. It said that his people had wanted him to convert for many years, and he's converted, or rather they wanted one of the empires to become Christian. And so here we see the manifestation of that prayer. So what Constantine does is he wants to take his people along with him. That is the decision that he is making. He wants to magnify the Lord in that way and bring his people along with him. Rightly or wrongly for him, he has to make a choice. His noise and his distraction, his point of magnifying the Lord is not a simple thing. He has to make the choice between the old way of doing things and bringing in a new Christian faith. And so they decide that they're going to have a mass for Christ to honor the birth of Jesus, hence Christmas. His challenge is that people were still holding on to the festivals, and some of these festivals are about praising the god of the sun and Jupiter. And so he said, we can bring all these things together and have, I guess, what could be known as the earlier versions of Christmas. But here we still understand that there's a tension between these two things happening together. But Constantine magnified the Lord, and he pushed through and brought his people with him. That is the decision he made. So from this story, we can see that Christmas, or putting God at the center, has never been simple. I don't think there's ever been a simple Christmas. The story of Zechariah and Elizabeth tells us of a decision that John made. You know, Mary and Joseph, they made a decision too. Constantine, in that first Christmas, in whatever form that took, you know, he made a decision to say that I want everybody to come with me, and this is how I'm magnifying the Lord. What are some of the distractions that we're faced with today? It can be consumerism. How many presents am I going to buy? Everybody needs a present. We have gone through a very testing year in 2020, right? And going into 2021 may bring with it some anxieties. Is that, keeping us up at night? Is that going to be the distraction around Christmas? Just thinking about what does 2021 look like? We don't want another year like that, What are some of the distractions that we're plagued with in our Christmas? And how can we be intentional about making sure that we magnify God? We make God bigger than whatever is happening in our season right now, And on top of that, rejoice while doing that, even when it doesn't feel right? Even when inside you have doubts, you have questions, like Zechariah, like, God, what about? How are we going to magnify the Lord? So I'll leave you with an example of what I have come to know as perhaps the worst Christmas I've ever had, and where I was not able to magnify the Lord at all at this point. So I was 10 years old, yes, that far back. I was 10 years old, and we had closed school, and my cousins and I were going to go to my grandmother's house. And my grandmother lived about a 10-minute drive from my parents' house. And so we went and we were there, and we'd been sleeping over for, let's just say, about maybe 4 or 5 nights, right? And Christmas was coming up, and I was so geared up. I was like, yes, I'm going to spend time with my cousins. And come Christmas Eve, my dad comes to get me and one of my cousins who used to stay with us. And he was like, no, actually, I want us to spend Christmas just the immediate family. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I wanted to spend time with my cousins. We were going to play, and my grandmother was going to cook. My grandmother, being half Zimbabwean, she has this dish. We used to call it mtakura. I think the Zimbabweans will know it. So she should cook that, and there would be like a meat stew, and I was looking forward to this. My dad then says, okay, we're going home. So I go home. But, at this point I'm expecting, I was like, you know what, if we've left grandma's house, there is something that's going to happen. at home. He must have something planned. Maybe the other cousin's coming. Oh, I know. Maybe he has this big banquet waiting for me. Let's go. Went there. Christmas Day came, and, so in Malawi, presents are not really a big thing. Like, we're not running for the Christmas tree and searching. No, we're just waiting for the big crowds, and we are waiting for the food. Someone's going to cook, and there's going to be food. I woke up, there was nothing like that. There was no food. Well, there was foods because we ate, but not to the levels that I was expecting. And what ended up happening was my dad just sat on the porch and with my mom chatting and drinking his beer, and he gave us some Fantas and we ate some food. I was devastated. And in that moment, if someone had come to me and said, magnify the Lord, I'd be like, no, this is not what I am expecting. This is not the Christmas I was expecting. So to end, let's choose to magnify the Lord this Christmas. Let's be intentional about rejoicing that He is our Savior. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed Sunday's message as much as we did. To find out more about Lifespring Church, head to www.lifespringchurch.org.uk.